Hey guys, Hati here. Wanted to talk to you about my thoughts on Abyssal dungeons in Lost Ark. I don't like the Abyssal dungeon content in the game. I've said it. That's my opinion. Maybe the truth is I don't like the players in the game, but I have spent so much time running in parties with people who don't understand the mechanics, or they just don't have the damage, or the parties are not composed well, so you don't have a support, or there's just really not a great composition. And I know you can make your own parties and you can get people from your guild to run this, but sometimes I just am not in the mood to do that, and I want to run these, and maybe that's me being lazy. But I just want to say I highly encourage you guys to be a part of the community that goes and learns about these mechanics and understands what you need to be doing to help your team, how to encourage them as you're in these. Like a lot of these, especially in these Phaeton level dungeons, you've got a lot of bosses that will petrify you, and it's up to your team to get you out, or if your teammate gets petrified, it's up to you to attack them and essentially unpetrify them. And there's just so many of these dungeons I see where that's not happening, and it's just there's no reason not to do it. It's a huge detriment to the team, but just in general, the Abyssal content, I think it needs some work. I mean, the fights are fine, the bosses, obviously they're hard, as we saw by the fact that they nerfed them all. I think they probably nerfed some of them too much, in my opinion. But they're hard dungeons, and they're meant to be hard, and I feel like they could probably do something to not make necessarily the actual content in the dungeons easier, but to make it easier for players to understand these dungeons and to organize themselves in parties, that or understand these things and that are composed well to get through these fights. And then of course there's the whole potion piece of this. So I think in a situation where you've got players who don't understand mechanics, it's hard for them to organize. A lot of people are, even if they're in a guild, they're still solo players, and it's hard to get through this content. And on top of that, take into consideration the fact that you're burning through all these potions because of this environment that's set up this way. I think in the long run that scenario, at least here in the West, is potentially going to be harmful to the game and the player base. So I just really love to see them figure out some way to help make sure that these players can build parties that actually work in some of these dungeons, and to communicate the mechanics to the players in these parties a little bit better. And I'm not exactly sure what that looks like. I know I don't want to sit here and complain without a solution in mind, but I'd be really interested to see if you guys have any comments on that, or if that's something a frustration that you guys share, because to be totally honest, sometimes I get really frustrated in these dungeons, and I'm still playing the game, but there have absolutely been a weekend or a couple days here or there where I've had just quit dungeon after quit dungeon as a result of these issues, and it just kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth, and I need a break from the game. So I'd love to hear from you guys on what your thoughts are on that. I may do another video about this topic, especially now that these nerfs are in place, as we kind of see how that pans out a little bit. And then the other thing too that my buddy Telek mentioned is nerfing these dungeons potentially may have I think it's probably highly likely that it took a bunch of players that were in the lower, tier 1, working through that process, and helped them move faster up into tier 2 without learning some good practices, like taking the time to understand mechanics before going into a dungeon. And so that potentially all of these players are going to run into a roadblock now as they get into tier 2 and eventually tier 3. If that ever happens for me, we'll see. Also, please move the restart vote window. It does not need to be in the center of the screen. But anyway, love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Please don't forget to like and subscribe so we can grow this channel, and I'll be looking forward to seeing your guys' comments. Thanks.